from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories. Britain and the United States hit Houthi targets in Yemen following attacks on international shipping. A number of countries have expressed their concern. Our other headlines: Israel tells the United Nations top court that accusations it's committing genocide in Gaza are grossly distorted. And the first high-level exchange between China and an EU country this year. Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo is in Beijing. The Iranian-backed Houthi rebel group says the United States and the United Kingdom will pay a heavy price after launching airstrikes on its targets in Yemen. Fighter jets took off from ships and military bases overnight. Washington says they hit Houthi command centers, munitions depots and air defense systems. It's in response to Houthi attacks on ships in the Red Sea. The armed group says the action is in support of Palestinians in Gaza. Several countries have backed the US-UK strikes, but some, including Saudi Arabia, have expressed their concern, while Iran, Russia and Turkey condemned the move. The Houthis have vowed retaliation.
The American and British enemies bear full responsibility for their criminal aggression against our Yemeni people. It will not go unpunished or unanswered. The Yemeni armed forces confirm that they will continue to prevent Israeli ships going to the ports of occupied Palestine from navigation in the Arab and Red Seas.
Let's talk to our correspondent Jim Stenman following the story in Dubai. Jim, what do we know about these specific targets of these attacks, and what have the Houthis been saying?
Yeah, as you mentioned, the U.S. and Britain, with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands, launched air and sea strikes against the Houthi military in Yemen on Thursday, with a total of 60 targets in 16 separate locations and using more than 100 precision munitions. This is largely seen as a regional widening now, this war, Israel's war on Gaza. The attacks using warplanes, ships, and submarines, they come in response to the Iran-backed group's ongoing attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea, which, as you know very well, is a key route for global trade, responsible for some 15% of the world's shipping traffic. Witnesses have told Reuters of explosions throughout Yemen, while U.S. President Joe Biden has warned that his country hesitates to take further action if needed, calling these strikes a clear message that America and its allies won't tolerate further attacks in this crucial waterway. Hospitalized U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said in a statement that the strikes targeted Houthi capabilities, including drones, ballistic and cruise missiles, coastal and air surveillance. The UK Defense Ministry believes that these strikes really have resulted in a heavy blow to the Houthis. Now, the Iran-backed Houthis, they claim that their attacks on ships in the Red Sea are a show of support for Palestinians and Hamas, the Islamist group that controls Gaza.
Jim, I'm going to interrupt you there because we're struggling with the quality of sound, but I think we got the general idea. Our correspondent Jim Stenman in Dubai, and my apologies for the quality of the sound there. Let's move on and talk to Jamie Shea, former NATO Deputy Assistant Secretary General. Jamie, very easy to start military action, perhaps not so easy to stop it. A report from the London-based Royal United Service Institute has warned that it may prove difficult for the West to effectively degrade Houthi capabilities. Would you go along with that?
Yes, I do, because look at what's been going on with Israel and Hamas in Gaza, where the Israelis have been trying to crush Hamas in Gaza for several months at an enormous cost that all of your viewers know about. But Hamas is still firing missiles into Israel. And Israel is saying that to fully suppress Hamas, which is totally isolated now from the rest of the world, is going to take several months. So if you put that situation now into Yemen with the Houthis, who who have no problems whatsoever being resupplied by Iran and who have already accumulated quite a lot of missile launching platforms, radars, production facilities, then presumably one single set of strikes by the US and the UK, no matter how significant last night, is not going to fully degrade their capability. They've promised retaliation, and so far, despite the Americans hitting some of their boats in the Red Sea on New Year's Eve, and therefore already retaliating against the Houthis at sea, so far the Houthis seem to be a tough nut to crack. They're not deterred very easily. So presumably this is going to still play out for some weeks yet.
The assaults, I think, have now notched up to the 27th attack on shipping since the 19th of November. I mean, if not military action, what were the other options?
Well, there aren't really other options against the Houthis because they are very isolated. Very few countries, apart from Iran, have diplomatic relations with them. As I've said, the threat of military action, just a couple of weeks ago, Jamie, you recall that 12 Western countries, not just the United States and UK, but many others, came together to issue a warning to the Houthis not to carry on with these strikes against commercial shipping. The Houthis disregarded that. So diplomatic avenues are good, but they seem to be very limited in this particular case. What I suppose this really is a worry that a conflict in Gaza, which has been successfully contained hitherto, despite tensions in Lebanon with Hezbollah, despite tensions in Syria and Iraq, now this conflict could start to escalate and expand because of these strikes against the Houthis.
Saudi Arabia has spent, I think, a decade trying to remove Houthi rebels from Yemen by force. That hasn't worked, has it?
No, it hasn't. And in fact, the Saudis are pleased that they've had for several months now a ceasefire with the Houthis, which has enabled Saudi Arabia to sort of disengage and extricate itself from a conflict which was really grueling for the Saudis, and where the Houthis also were quite successful in attacking with their missiles Saudi targets. Jamie, you remember the spectacular Houthi attack against the Saudi Abqaiq oil refinery a couple of years back, which shut down about 15% of global oil production for several days. So the Houthis certainly have had this capacity. The Saudis have also, as you recall, open diplomatic relations now with Iran, the sponsor of Iran. And again, anything which now pushes the West and the Gulf countries into a new confrontation with Iran on the back of what's been going on in the Red Sea with the Houthis is something that's going to worry the Saudis and many other Gulf countries as well. Everybody's wanted so far to keep this situation in Gaza at least limited and to have only one conflict at one time to deal with. But this horizontal escalation now as far away as Yemen, several thousand kilometers from Gaza, is something that I think is going to be worrying. And I suppose the US and the UK, by launching a fairly significant number of strikes yesterday, not symbolic, against over 70 different targets, will be hoping that they've done enough to deter the Houthis, but not in a way that's going to make escalation now inevitable.
Jamie, good to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming on the programme. Jamie Shea, former NATO Deputy Assistant Secretary General. China has responded to these airstrikes, with its foreign ministry saying it's communicating with all parties to try and calm the situation.
China is concerned about the escalation of tension in the Red Sea. We urge all parties to exercise restraint to prevent the conflict from expanding. The Red Sea is an important route for international trade and energy. China suggests all parties jointly maintain the security of international waterways and avoid harassing civilian vessels.
Israel has rejected what it calls grossly distorted accusations of genocide in the hearing at the International Court of Justice. It's responding to the case brought by South Africa, which has asked judges to impose emergency measures to immediately stop the Israeli offensive in Gaza. Israel argues any such move would leave it defenseless. Well, let's talk to our correspondent, Johannes Pressburger, at The Hague. Johannes, what has Israel been saying in court?
Well, Israel's defense argument here at the UN's top court in The Hague included various points. For instance, Israel said that there is no genocide because the Israeli forces are targeting Hamas and not the Palestinian people, Israel claims. Furthermore, Israel says that if there are acts of genocide going on right now in Gaza, then they have been perpetrated against Israel, the Israeli representative said. Furthermore, they said they try to turn around, or they do turn around the argument saying that Hamas are seeking a genocide against the Israeli people. Now, South Africa has been trying, or has requested some emergency measures in Gaza, which could be, for instance, a ceasefire, which the court could decide on in just 1 or 2 weeks. Israel says that such a ceasefire would render Israel's defense less. So another thing that Israel has brought up in today's defense speech is that it accuses South Africa of acting as a mouthpiece for Hamas. Now, so there are serious allegations, serious accusations coming from both sides here at the hearings in The Hague.
Johannes, thank you for that. Our correspondent Johannes Pleshberger at The Hague. Well, let's talk now to our correspondent Trent Murray in Tel Aviv. Trent, what's been the reaction in Israel today to today's hearing?
Well, Jamie, as you might imagine, this is a major news event for the people of Israel. There has been wall-to-wall coverage pretty well across all of the major media networks here as they watched their legal team refute those accusations from South Africa, and we are getting some government response as well to what was said in the court. The country's foreign minister has posted a statement online saying that he is hopeful that the complaint will be outright dismissed and he has faith that justice will prevail. He also said that South Africa seeks to allow Hamas to return to commit to war crimes, as well as accused South Africa of making baseless claims and also of violating the Geneva Convention itself by supporting the terrorist organisation Hamas, which calls for the elimination of the State of Israel, in his words. We're also hearing some response from Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. He has made a very bold claim that the UN should be the one to sit on trial in The Hague. That is just some of the government response. Shabbat here in Israel is just about to begin, a time when Jewish families will come together to sit down for a meal after a week of work. One would imagine that today's news events will certainly be a major topic of conversation for millions across this country tonight.
Trent, thank you for that. Our correspondent Trent Murray in Tel Aviv. Well, Israeli strikes across the besieged Gaza Strip have killed around 150 Palestinians in the last 24 hours, taking the total death toll since October to almost 24,000 people. Israel's military is continuing its aerial and ground assault, claiming to have killed dozens of Hamas operatives in central Gaza. Well, let's talk to our correspondent Akram Al-Satari in Gaza. Akram, how do Palestinians in Gaza, I wonder, feel about this ICJ case at The Hague?
Palestinians are optimistic, but with that optimism comes some anxiety and fear. The Palestinians have been trying the international regime for such a very long time, around more than 7 decades now, and with all the horrors they have been through, with all the killing that they have been seeing, with all the devastation, homelessness and displacement they have been experiencing, they have legitimate fears when it comes to the international community and its ability to point a finger to the Israeli occupation that has been causing them all those suffering, all that devastation and killing. The Palestinians are hopeful. They have been following the news about that ICJ sessions. They have been following the repressions and the proceedings of that court, a tribunal, and they are hoping that at least eventually, after 75 years or more, some powers in this international system would be able to bring Israel to trial and would be able to hold Israeli occupation accountable for the crimes that have been committed against the Palestinian people. And I'm here echoing the things that were said by the Palestinians who lost their homes, who lost their rears, who ended up injured and displaced.
And dozens more people killed in overnight Israeli attacks. Just give us an update on these latest strikes across the enclave.
The strikes continuous. They have been claiming the lives of dozens of Palestinians, like you have said. And the latest developments about those strikes, that they are getting very close to Shuhada al-Aqsa Hospital, the hospital that we ourselves moved from towards the Gaza very south. Now the Israeli tanks are at the very beginning of the street that leads to Shuhada al-Aqsa Hospital, and the Israeli fighter jets are continuing to target the area in the vicinity of the hospital, and many more Palestinians are still falling injured and dead and becoming homeless because of that bombardment. The number of the Palestinians killed overnight was around 150. Around 25 more were killed in the last few hours, and we are still receiving update about more bombardment in central Gaza, more bombardment in Gaza City and the north, and more bombardment also in southern Gaza.
Akram, thank you for that. Our correspondent Akram Al-Satari in Gaza. The British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has announced a new $3 billion support package for Ukraine. The deal, revealed during a surprise visit to Kyiv, is the largest UK commitment to Ukraine since the conflict with Russia began. The cash will ensure delivery of the single biggest tranche of military drones so far to Ukraine, plus long-range missiles and artillery shells. Myanmar's military government has agreed a ceasefire with armed rebels after peace talks brokered by China. Ethnic groups have been fighting state forces in the north of the country since a military takeover 3 years ago. China's foreign ministry has called on both sides to earnestly implement the ceasefire agreement. China has posted its first drop in annual exports in 7 years as global demand faltered and prices fell. Official customs data shows the country exported 4.6% less than a year earlier to a total of $3.38 trillion. December exports, though, rose 2.3% year on year. You're watching CGTN, still ahead. The first high-level exchange between China and an EU country this year. Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo in Beijing.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? And unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
Well, China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us.
And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
Events have consequences. Words create impact.
One more offensive in a long line of battles that's been ongoing for more...
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots. Excuse us.
The world today matters for your world tomorrow.
The number of casualties is growing quickly.
Why, this is one of the hardest hit towns in the region.
The world today, every day on CGTN.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. Britain and the United States have hit Houthi targets in Yemen following attacks on international shipping. A number of countries, though, have expressed their concern. Our other headlines: Israel tells the United Nations top court that accusations of committing genocide in Gaza are grossly distorted. China's President Xi Jinping wants more Belgian businesses investing in his country. She was speaking with the Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo in Beijing. De Croo ends a 2-day state visit to China with trade top of his agenda. His trip comes after Belgium assumed the presidency of the Council of the European Union on the 1st of January. Well, our correspondent Yu Yang is in Beijing. Yu Yang, what's the latest you're hearing from the leaders' talks?
Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo has wrapped up his two-day official visit to China, and this makes him the first European leader to visit China in 2024. On Friday afternoon, Chinese President Xi Jinping met with him at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. President Xi said since diplomatic ties between China and Belgium were established 53 years ago, cooperation across various fields has brought positive results and benefit the people of both sides. He said both China and Belgium are beneficiaries of economic globalization, and the two share a common interest in resisting protectionism and upholding free trade. At the same time, she also spoke highly of De Croo's public statements, in which the Belgian leader has repeated a supposed idea of decoupling from China. The Chinese leader said Beijing welcomes Belgian companies to invest in the country and develop in the country, and is willing to provide them with a positive business environment and opportunities. Meanwhile, the Belgian Prime Minister said the relationship between his country and China has a long history. He stressed that Belgium would love to continue to adhere to the One China principle, and that his country is willing to engage in a frank dialogue with China, deepen mutual understanding, and promote stronger bilateral relations. Once again, he also reiterated his opposition to decoupling from China. In fact, his visit comes at a time when Belgium holds the presidency of the Council of the European Union, or the EU, and can be seen as the latest example of frequent high-level interactions between China and the EU, especially if we take into consideration De Croo's visit follows the trip to China by European Council President Charles Michel and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who attended the 24th China-EU summit last December. Well, the Belgian PM said when facing with turbulence and uncertainties in the world, actually, international community needs China and Europe to work together as partners to strengthen cooperation in promoting global economic growth, addressing climate change, and building a more stable international community. Back to you.
Yu Yang, thank you for that. Our correspondent Yu Yang in Beijing. China has named the former Vice Foreign Minister Liu Zhimin as its new Special Envoy for Climate Change. Liu's appointment comes after his predecessor, Xie Zhenhua, resigned due to health reasons. His resignation was announced following a video meeting with his US opposite number, John Kerry, and comes weeks after he helped secure an agreement to tackle emissions from fossil fuels at the COP28 climate talks in Dubai. The UK's withdrawal from the European Union has cost the country close to $180 billion. That's according to new figures commissioned by London's mayor. Researchers say overall the economy is 6% smaller than if Britain had stayed in the EU. The Labour mayor Sadiq Khan is calling for a closer relationship with the EU, saying Brexit has failed to deliver the economic benefits voters were promised. Argentina now has Latin America's highest inflation. An increase in December took the yearly rise in prices to 211%. Our correspondent Joel Richards reports now from Buenos Aires.
Not since 1990, in a period of hyperinflation, has Argentina seen such high levels of inflation. With the official figures released on Thursday afternoon, Argentina has overtaken Venezuela with the highest inflation rate in Latin America. The National Statistics Institute reported a 25.5% increase in prices in December alone, taking the annual figure for 2023 to 211%. These are the first inflation figures for Libertarian President Javier Milei, who won his election on the promise of taking hard decisions to stabilize the economy through unprecedented austerity measures. From day one in office, Milei warned that inflation would rise in the early months of his presidency. In his first week in government, Milei devalued the peso by 54%. The government also removed price controls on many products and services. These two factors largely explain the spike in inflation in December, doubling the monthly double-digit inflation left by the previous government of Alberto Fernandez. Joel Richards, CGTN, Buenos Aires.
Flying cars and a snowblower run by artificial intelligence. The Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas is offering something of a glimpse into our futures. Sustainable transport and autonomous vehicles are among the highlights, with Chinese companies in the driving seat. Our correspondent Mark New reports.
At CES, groundbreaking self-driving products hit the show floor. The Yarbo autonomous robot can be turned into a lawnmower and also the world's first autonomous snowblower. The maker of Yarbo says because so many Americans have big yards to manage, it's their top market.
Yeah, we are using artificial intelligence. Our customers, they also reflect, oh, like once we get the snowblower, I won't worry about like how can I get outside of the my apartment or my house.
And on the CES show floor, you'll find science fiction has become reality. Right behind me is the XPeng Aerot electric vertical and takeoff landing flying car.
The wings unfold like something out of a Transformers movie. While this supercar is a prototype, a similar model has already taken to the air in testing.
A lot of challenge. You know, all the folding system, and they all means weight. But the aircraft, you need to make it more lighter and lighter. So a lot of challenge. Besides this, how to make it long range, make it more strong power.
At CES, XPeng also announced that its land aircraft carrier modular flying car will be open for pre-orders near the end of the year, with plans to begin delivery to customers in 2025.
I think the human, like we are 3D animal, but our transportation, you know, it's 2D. Even we have the bridge, even we have the road, and even we have the subway, but they have different layer. So in the future, I think the man should have the 3D transportation.
Futuristic concepts are also transforming motorcycle design, which at CES has transitioned to all electric. Inspired by movies like Tron and video games like Cyberpunk 2077, Horwin is showing its prototype, Senmenti X.
It integrates so many smart functions. It has cameras in the left and right, so it can record the surrounding traffic. It can tell the riders what is happening.
Headquartered in Changzhou, China, Horwin has primarily focused on online distribution. But CEO Gary Liao says in August, the company is planning to open its first U.S. showroom in Southern California.
I'm very excited, and I find there are so many people that are interested in this type of motorcycles because they have been seeing too many traditional motorcycles. It's like a dream bike. That dream bike coming to real world.
Mark New, CGTN, Las Vegas.
The DPRK is to admit its first international tourists since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. A group of Russian visitors from the city of Vladivostok is due to arrive early next month for a 4-day visit, taking in Pyongyang and a ski resort. DPRK authorities imposed some of the strictest border controls in the world during the pandemic in early 2020 and has yet to fully reopen to foreigners. The headlines again. Britain and the United States hit Houthi rebels in Yemen following attacks on international shipping. A number of countries have expressed their concern. Our other headlines: Israel tells the United Nations top court that accusations it's committing genocide in Gaza are grossly distorted. And the first high-level exchange between China and an EU country this year. President Xi meets Belgium's Prime Minister in Beijing. And that is The World Today. Thank you for watching. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.